Hello everyone, this is your second place gaming here, more like a dedicated forum dweller. I'm Lostariel and I've made another video about Diablo 4. So after a long while, I decided to create this video because I think that I'll be able to show you everything that's currently wrong with Diablo 4. First of all, we'll have to debunk a few unfortunate myths. The myth that focusing currently, at least at that, competition and competitiveness matter and drive the game. Maybe yes, maybe no. That is irrelevant because it affects a minority. I'm still convinced that majority of people, first and foremost, the main reason why they play games is to quote unquote blow off the steam, so to speak. And frankly, I must say that blows my mind that me realizing having to say this alone should be default and clear as day. Yes, I get it. Some people play to compete and be better than everyone, but that's the minority. And the game currently fails to provide that blowing of steam material. Everything is a steep climb towards the end. I feel that if you fail to provide that, you've also failed the reason why most people want to play the game. Also, notice how the phrase itself implies that, first of all, there should be a steam, quote unquote, and it exists and it is there. Secondly, this may be even coming after you, i.e., it's not up to the players to decide and to chase their challenge. The game should give it to them inherently. In other words, do not make anything trivial inside the game, no matter how unimpactful. Everything is part of the journey. It's much more important for Phil not to feel they are being time wasted rather than everything they do having a definite impact and purpose. Now let's go to the game and show you everything that's wrong with the game. I'm currently playing a druid, almost P180, and I've completed every other objective there is except these two, escalating dungeons and ancestral bounties. The problem is not that I don't have currently a sigil to open the escalated dungeon round, or the fact that I'll maybe have to open 50 more whisper caches to do an ancestral one. The problem is in two other things. One, notice that I cannot do both of these things at the same time. Well, maybe if I'm super lucky to have a round that has also 100 rooms and is a whisper of a bounty. But more importantly, I have nothing to play around with. Gear is decent, except maybe a few spots. And I have the weapon, I have the amulet, I have, mostly it's good. And notice how that I'm maybe 30 points away from my next upgrade in the Paragon board number 5, and that's about I'm trying to get. So the question is simple here. What to do during these levelings of 30 Paragon points or so? What I'm saying here is simple. Just because players can grind their bones off doesn't mean that they should. There should be some kind of a secondary mechanism that makes this portion of the journey manageable, making it feel like players can try things during that phase of the game. Before we go to the hot topic of itemization, I want to state another important point. Even if what I said, just sounded like a complaint, it's not. Do not straight on open the road, so to speak. Do not speed up the journey. Do not make it a highway. That's not the solution here, and it's never the solution. Even if you maybe can make the ride smoother for those 30 levels. Just a matter of time people realize and ask for the road to be longer. That defeats the entire purpose of what we are trying to do here, which is when people complain, planting some plants down the road, do not turn the entire journey into a highway. Now a few things about the set itemization. I noticed how some videos lately talking about dopamine chase, they are trying to instruct some suggestions, so to speak. I will say this is very bad and very dangerous myth and will make it things worse, or say at the very least focuses on the entirely wrong part of the problem. Namely, there is not a single game out there that has a good itemization in which the 0.0000001% of the loot carries its purpose. For example, you can take out Tyrell's Might or Immortal King's Will set from Diablo 2, and the itemization will function just as well. When Diablo 4 is in question, here is the problem, or at least in my opinion, the biggest problem with itemization. The biggest problem of Diablo 4 currently is Masterwork is mandatory for all the items. In just the last round, I got this really nice ring, and I would say it's close enough but looks like an upgrade. So then I glance and I see that I have just around 600 Obdusite, and the moment kicks in. Therein lies the problem, that the fact that I have to masterwork every single piece of gear, and if I want to equip it, defeats the entire purpose of finding a new gear piece. Now the second problem, Diablo 4 not only doesn't exclude tempering and masterwork, it's mandatory for them both to be together. So not only the player is required to run a few rounds when they get a new item, they're also forced to gamble twice. The solution is simple in this regard. Make masterwork and tempering exclude one another. That removes the double gamble, and it also removes the chore for masterworking every single item. In other words, the chore becomes the choice. Which brings me to another very important point regarding of itemization. Itemization should not be a system of stackable conveniences. It should be a system of choices. That is the entire problem with Diablo 4. You must do tempering and masterwork at the same time. On top of that, I would like to suggest a simple solution to fix regardless of the blue items or say any other item in the game. You can just add a superiority coefficient which will just increase numbers of either sockets or added affixes. The third problem with Diablo 4 lies in the fact that pit is a total mess, and it's a slog that can last up to 15 minutes just so that you have a 15-second hit or miss. Yes, that is the worst case scenario, but that also defines the final state of the feature. Everyone gets to the point of that struggle, except maybe the few broken builds that clear pit 150. The problem is, again, not that people inevitably end up swimming in the mud, so to speak. The problem lies that there is nothing to fine-tune character when that phase of the game happens. Pure chase of power is not the main reason why people play the game. It's about chasing fantasy and finally making it on the monitor. Therefore, because there's nothing to toy with or adjust, the chase of fantasy ends the moment the smooth progress or decently smooth progress ends. Think of something to spice things up. Maybe cut down on the glyph leveling and add a socket in the glyphs. Maybe instead upgrading the altar, drop several already pre-leveled glyphs with one extra random stat. Right now, for example, there is 0 point in replaying the same pit level twice if glyphs are decently leveled up for the player to continue playing. In addition to that, I would also advise to reduce the timer. In fact, the pit itself by design contradicts its own purpose in it being a relatively fast level up mechanism or a long test of fate, test of might round that unlocks a higher challenge. Recently, I wrote a piece in which I emphasized differences between looting grounds and looting places. Those two immediately pop out to the person's head based on the experience of other games, and both are proven models to be working just fine. Namely, looting grounds are random, often share objective but each has a randomized tasks, which serves as a built-in anti-boredom mechanism and an RNG reward at the end. Looting places, on the other hand, emphasizing the exact opposite end of the spectrum. They are based on the premise of rare opportunity to get a rare reward. They are usually big, require bigger commitment, last long, and most importantly contain surprises inside them, but the final encounter and final reward are mostly static in nature. I'm saying all this to immediately recognize that the pit does neither serve of these purposes. It's neither a looting ground that has a built-in anti-boredom mechanism, nor it's a looting place which provides rare opportunity for rare experience. Can this be one of the reasons why the pit is just so bad and unintuitive in nature? I'll let the viewers to decide. One more thing, another problem that shouldn't go just unnoticed. Recently, people have been complaining about quote-unquote invulnerable phases in boss fights, but they didn't point out the need for perimeter damage penalty, i.e. the mechanism which reduces damage taken if just scratched off on the edge of a boss attack. So, to summarize, 1. Don't trivialize anything, even if it means slower leveling. 2. Secondary fine-tune mechanism is required most notably on the Paragon for when people get stuck in the mud, ultimately at the end. 3. Split and exclude from one another tempering and masterwork. Yes, this will result in loss of power, but that's also why there's Paragon. 4. Fix the pit, or at least fix the leveling of glyphs. Thanks for watching.